Hello, everybody. Carlos Toro here. I'm joined by a very special guest, wrestler Danny Limelight, who you may have seen on New Japan Pro Wrestling programming recently. Also been on Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, a number of different places. Danny, thanks so much for taking time to talk to me. How've you been?
Hey, Carlos, how you doing, man? Thanks for having me. Shout out to all your listeners and people that tune in, man. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm excited, man. I've been good. I've been real good. What about you?
Man, pretty good. I can't complain too much. It's been a very, very busy day. As of this recording, it's September 10, and we are one day before your next match on New Japan against Rocky Romero. A very, very exciting fight. And I think a lot of people are really looking forward to that as part of a very big, big event, Fighting Spirit Unleashed.
Yes, Fighting Spirit Unleashed is huge in New Japan. It's been an honor to be even a part of the New Japan locker room, being part of the roster and stuff like that. And then being able to showcase my skills and my talents on this kind of a platform, this magnitude of a scale, has been truly humbling and adrenaline rushing. And tomorrow, September 11th, I get to go one-on-one with Mr. Asuka himself, Rocky Romero. A lot of people have been talking about this. A lot of history between me and Rocky has been slowly developing on Twitter, online, and just he's been somebody that I've looked up to for so long, and being able to have a one-on-one matchup with him has been great. About 3 weeks ago, I was in a tag team match against him, and it went really well. It was a good match, and a lot of people started talking, and now here we are.
Yeah, and listen, Rocky's a great dude, great wrestler. I mean, for those of you who are listening, you can listen to my interview with Rocky Romero also on this channel. Great dude. I mean, he's a very, very opinionated guy and a very, very interesting guy to say the least. But he's a phenomenal dude, and I can't wait for the match between you and Rocky.
It's gonna be awesome, man. Yeah, Rocky's definitely somebody who's opinionated. He's been saying a lot of things on Twitter. He's been watching me, trying to put me under his wing and stuff like that. And he's also somebody who does have a good heart for the business. Does have the best intentions for New Japan. He's been a backbone in the company for such a long time. So it's definitely like I will say my real first test, and since coming. Not saying that my debut match with TJ Perkins wasn't a test, but I've been in the ring with TJ Perkins before. I think this is my first kind of like gut check test to see where I stand and where I fall in the ranks of the New Japan roster, especially with these, the young lions and things of that nature.
So before we kind of get into all of that, I do wanted to ask, how have you been during this pandemic? How's your day-to-day change throughout this whole year, given that everything seems to sort of been just start unraveling in a lot of different ways, especially out there in California. I hope you and everybody out there is safe with everything. I've seen some of the videos. They have been absolutely insane.
Yeah, man. This morning I woke up and I was going to the gym, and I looked, and like at one side I could see the sun perfectly shining, and then I could see the moon. The sky was like all embered out. My car had a bunch of ash on it. The fires have been crazy, man. I'm just praying for everybody that has been affected by them to that they can make it through this and stuff like that. The pandemic, it kind of has been really stress relieving, and for me, it's been giving me a chance to relax my body a little bit more. It's been giving me a chance to spend more time with my daughter, take more time to write and do things that I like to do that I haven't had time to do because I was always on the road wrestling or traveling for work and things of that nature, or filming commercials, TV shows, things like that, auditioning nonstop. So it kind of allowed me to simmer down a bit, focus on my mental health, my emotional health, just my physical health in general. Been able to hit the weights a lot harder. Had time to actually recover. I miss wrestling, but fortunately because of New Japan and Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, I have been able to wrestle consistently since June. So it hasn't really affected my wrestling too much. In fact, I would even say that my best wrestling moments have came during this pandemic in my career. So I'm very grateful for that. And I just take everything for what it is. And for some people, this was a huge, blow. And I feel bad for those that suffered financially because of it, but also, I use it as like another test, another wall to climb over. Am I gonna let this pandemic, break me down, defeat me mentally, make me gain weight and look, get out of shape and things like that? Or am I gonna push myself even harder so that when I'm back in the ring, I look like I never missed a step? And I think for those that have been tuning in every Friday to New Japan Strong, they've seen that I look better than ever in the ring, and physically and all that stuff. I think I look great. So it hasn't been too bad. I've been very blessed, And my daughter, she's doing good. She just started first grade, but she's doing it all online right now. So I'm also taking college online. So it hasn't really slowed us down much at all.
Speaking of New Japan, obviously you've been one of several new guys that have been entered onto the New Japan USA scene. So how did that kind of go all started? Where did the relationship between you and New Japan start?
I would say it dates back to 2015 when Mr. David Marquez, shout out to David Marquez, pulled me into Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. And then I became kind of like, I don't want to say the heart and soul, but I definitely became somebody that has been, trying to carry the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood banner flag, if you will, on my back. And I've been there for 5 years now. A lot of the guys that were there when I got there are signed with AEW. They're signed with Impact. They're signed with WWE, New Japan as well. So, it's not that many familiar faces there. And I'm definitely one of the cornerstones of the company now. And so I met Rocky Romero at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. He had just won the PP3 Cup back in, I think, 2016. So I was, I met him there, he just became like a mentor of mine, somebody I can hit up and ask questions about the business, watch his work. We had similar styles already, similar look and things of that nature. So, just maintain like a working relationship, a friendship as well, I would say. And, this last summer, I made my debut with Impact. I wrestled in the X Division 5-way scramble match. It was me, Ace Austin, Jake Christ, Trey Miguel, and Adrian Quest. After that, I started really getting like a lot of the who's going to sign Danny Limelight tweets, who's in, sign Danny Limelight, because I think I had a really good showing and the fans did as well. And, I got a lot of buzz. And I don't want to say this is where it came from, but I definitely feel like that's when I started getting my real groove and who I am and coming into who I want to be in the wrestling business as a character and a person and things of that nature. And I think that's when Rocky had contacted me that he wanted me to come out to the New Japan tryout in the fall that just passed. So I came to the tryout. I teamed with Mysterioso, and we took on my boys, the Regal Twins. So shout out to the Regal Twins. We had a pretty decent tag match for the first time being in the ring with each other. It was good. It was fun. It was very, very simple. It was a tryout match, and we showed what we can do. And then Rocky told me, what he didn't like, what he liked, what he felt I needed to improve on, gave me good critique, and then said that I'll be hearing from them. And then sure enough, I ended up separating my shoulder a month after the tryout. I separated my shoulder, and they told me I was going to be out for 6 months unless I got surgery. I did not want to wait that long, nor did I want surgery. Fortunately, unfortunately, I got into a car accident the week after I separated my shoulder, and I basically like banged into the side of my car really hard, and it like set my shoulder back. So I still have like the weird lump right here, right, on my left shoulder, but it gave me range of motion. So literally 2 weeks after separating my shoulder, I had 1 week, it was the car accident, and it's like a week to rest. And like 2 weeks after I separated, I started lifting weights again. I started, getting the weight put onto it. I started getting the range of motion going, making sure I could move it. And 1 month after separating my shoulder, I was back in the ring wrestling a match. And it was a pretty explosive match. It was a 5-way match with like, Adrian Quest, Judiz, EJ Sparks, and I think it was Anthony Gangone. He had flown in. I can't remember the exact 5 people, but it was like literally 1 month after. And I came back and I did that, and then I felt good. And then I came back to Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. Unfortunately, I had missed the PP3 Cup after I qualified for it. I missed it. It was one of those things where I just used it as fuel to the fire, and I started rocking and rolling. And then the pandemic hit, and then I got the call from Rocky, hey, we were going to bring you in, but this pandemic, we need to take precautions, which I understand. And then it was I would say a couple weeks before June happened, because the first tapings for it happened in June 6th. It was like maybe the end of May, I got the call and said, hey, go get a COVID test, make sure you're good, self-quarantine, we're bringing you in. I came, I did all the stuff that I do, I tested negative, and I showed up. They had everything perfectly set up for social distancing. The ring was cleaned in between matches. They took real good care of us, and I wrestled my debut match against TJ Perkins.
So especially that TJ Perkins match, I think a lot of people were really impressed and really, really happy with that match. So, and I'm curious, when you were first brought in, was it sort of okay, we're going to bring you in for maybe a taping and that's it, or a match, or was it just sort of a go with the flow, just trying to see where it goes, or was there sort of a definite period of time of how long you were going to be wrestling on these shows?
Oh, no, I don't think there was. I think it was, we want to bring you in, and see what happens, see how it goes. And I taped 2 matches with them. I had a singles match with TJP for my debut, and then a singles match with Mysterioso. And I think it was the positive feedback from everybody from my TJ Perkins match. And that's just, a testament to TJ Perkins as well, being so damn professional, so damn good. It was my second match with him. We had wrestled a year prior in San Diego, and it was another fun match, and he's just that good. And I think it kind of just really, shed some light on, I don't want to say, I was going to say it put me in the limelight, but it would have been super like, pun on my name. But it really gave me like this because attention that I wasn't receiving, and then they brought me back. I think the second time they brought me back, I did like 8 matches, and then they brought me back again, and I did like another 3 or 4 matches. So I've done 15 matches right now as we speak with New Japan, I believe, roughly 15. I think it's about 15 or 14 matches that I've taped already, and they're still going to be airing, weekly, and I'm just grateful. I made the most out of an opportunity, and every time I'm in that ring, I work my ass off. I work hard. I take the feedback. I'm super grateful for the guys in there. We got guys like, Kenta in the locker room, Jay White, Chase Owens, Rocky, Tamatonga. You got Jeff Cobb, PJ Black, Fred Rosser. You got all these guys that have done everything in the business. TJ Perkins, Brody King, and then you got the young lions like Carl Fredericks, Clark Connors, guys that are coming up with me. And it's just everybody pushing, everybody giving solid critique, watching what you're doing and making sure that you're doing, if there's something that you could improve on, that you're improving on it. That's just how professional New Japan is. And I'm grateful to be part of the locker room, and any opportunity to keep throwing my way, I'm going to take it and run with it.
And you mentioned all those names that have been on New Japan USA shows recently, and it almost feels like New Japan's US division has kind of taken a brand of its own, compared, sort of separate from the Japan side, because obviously you guys have the New Japan Cup USA. You guys now got the weekly show. You guys got Fighting Unleashed this Friday. It's kind of taken a life of its own. Obviously, probably would have been better under different circumstances, not during a pandemic. But still,
Right.
it is the case where fortune favors the bold, so to speak. And you certainly have done. 15 matches. I think we've only ever seen like 7 or 8 total New Japan shows in general. So we're gonna be seeing you on New Japan programming for a while now.
Yes. I don't want to release any spoilers or anything like that, but
of course,
I think I have matches all the way till around Christmas time, or right before Christmas time. Right before the holidays. I have a lot of matches that we have taped and stuff like that. And it's been great. It's been awesome. And it is unfortunate it's during the pandemic, but I'm grateful for it regardless, nonetheless. New Japan Strong is definitely kind of developing into its own like USA brand. And I love it. I think it's great. I think it's great for the wrestling community. I think it gives fans something else to look at. I think it showcases a lot of other talent, like guys like myself, Alex Zane, Blake Christensen, Adrian Quest, more of Clark Connors, more of Carl Fredericks, people that need to be seen by everybody, that are so good, but they don't have the platform to showcase it, and New Japan Strong is doing that. And then it's surrounding us with guys like Fred Rosser, who used to be known as Darren Young, PJ Black, guys like TJ Perkins, Jeff Cobb, Kenta, these guys that have done it all. Jay White, the former heavyweight champion in New Japan Pro Wrestling, he's here in the New Japan Strong locker room, and that's just, we got guys from the Bullet Club there. It just really steel sharpens steel, and I think that New Japan Strong is slowly going to become one of people's favorite weekly shows.
I think for a lot of people, it's already their favorite weekly show. So now I'm curious, are you guys still taping, or obviously from what you've been telling me, you have a ton of content throughout the rest of the year. Are you guys still taping, or are you guys kind of now just taking the break? And also, I'm assuming that you're still sort of not exclusive to New Japan, but it's just they brought you in and that's it, right?
Well, I am technically not officially signed to a full-term deal with New Japan. I have my agreements with them that have been made and stuff like that. I'm still wrestling from Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. Obviously, the goal is to be officially signed. If it's New Japan, that's amazing, because they definitely have been the one company that really believed in me the most, that as far as one of the major companies out there. I thought last year that Impact was going to sign me. I thought that I had put on a good enough show to get the the hominid dominus from
Mhm.
Impact, but it didn't happen. Fortunately, everything happens for you. And now I'm with New Japan, and I'm grateful to be a part of it. Right now, the last time we taped in August, and so we're kind of like on a break period right now, resting. I just taped about a few weeks, 2 or 3 weeks ago. I just did like 6 episodes with Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, so 6 weeks of TV there. Championship Wrestling from Hollywood has been my home, I say, as far as a wrestling promotion. So we have that coming through. So we'll be taping again soon once those, gets close to the weeks being expired. And then this Tuesday, you got United Wrestling Network partnering with NWA for Primetime Live. That's something huge that's coming to the independent wrestling scene. And it's going to be seeing guys from United Wrestling Network, which I'm a part of the United Wrestling Network. I've been there for a very long time. Not very long, but 5 years, I think, of putting in the work, gives me some kind of like face to the company. People could associate me with United Wrestling Network. You got guys from the NWA that's going to be there, and a bunch of independent guys as well that they're going to be bringing in to bring the fans another show, another form of wrestling to watch. So that's huge. I think wrestling is doing great, even during these times. I do miss the indies. I miss the independent wrestling shows. I miss wrestling Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, seeing my boys, seeing the fans, but it'll all come back when it's supposed to come back. And I think that when it does, it's going to be better than ever.
You mentioned the UWN shows that are going to be doing pretty soon, and actually, I wanted to ask about that later, but I guess now it's the perfect time to ask. So, obviously, you mentioned a little bit, and that the first show that they got going on September 15th, it's already pretty loaded. I mean, you got Nick Aldis and Mike Bennett, Thunder Rosa in there. I think Alex Hammerstone as well as EJ Sparks are going to be on that very first show. Are we expecting Danny Limelight to be on one of these shows fairly
Oh,
soon?
I think that's fair to say. Obviously, I don't have the final say in that stuff,
Mhm.
but I'm sure that if things go well, which I'm sure they will with this show, that there will be more episodes coming, more primetime live happening, and I can guarantee that I will definitely be a part of the show. And if I'm not, I'm sure it'll be for a good reason. But as of right now, I would bet that I will be there.
So I remember reading not too long ago that obviously you mentioned that you were taping Championship Wrestling from Hollywood episodes recently. I also remember reading that Aron Stevens has now sort of taken over duties as the new head booker, if I have that correctly. So what's it been like sort of working with Aron, a guy who's been all over really, from WWE to Impact to even the NWA for a while.
Yeah, it's amazing, man. You grow up wanting to work with some of these guys, and then being able to share a locker room with him, being able to just sit under his tree of wisdom and really just taking his ideas. Because if for those that remember him, he was very creative,
Yeah.
and his mind is very different than a lot of wrestlers, the way he thinks. So it's been fun so far. Like I said, we taped 6 episodes. I had a lot of fun. It's going to be some changes coming, but good changes, I think.
Mhm.
And I think it's going to give the program a breath of fresh air. Not saying that the program was stale, but I think this is going to bring it into the next, because it's the 10th year, right? So I think this is going to bring it to the next 10 years. You know what I'm saying? And I'm excited to see what it's going to be like going forward. I just got off the phone with him earlier, and we had a good talk about some things, and I'm just excited.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously for those who may or may not remember, I mean, Aron Stevens, when he was Damien Sandow, I mean, the guy filled so many different hats throughout the years, and the dude, it was almost like everything he did just automatically got over from
Yeah,
his hard work. I mean, from the intellectual savior of the masses, which I thought was phenomenal. His whole thing with the Miz as the Miz's stunt double was hilarious and fantastic. And it's a great for me. It's a great get for Championship Wrestling of Hollywood, from Hollywood to sort of have him as a booker.
Absolutely, and I believe that going forward, it's going to get even better. And I think that what he brings is going to be something new and unique, and it's going to also help the wrestlers in the locker room to learn from him and to take in new creative ideas instead of staying with the stuff that they've always been doing. Kind of change it up, throw a little curveball at us, and see how we swing. And I think that it's going to get over really well with the fans. So I'm excited to see the fans' reactions to these next few episodes. Matter of fact, we talked about tomorrow, me versus Rocky Romero. This Saturday, CW30 Wrestling and Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. This weekend, you got me going one-on-one with Slice Boogie, Brooklyn versus Queens. And I'm back on United Wrestling Network. And I'm back at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood for our second episode back, and it's going to be an awesome one.
Obviously, how did you first sort of got into wrestling? 'Cause I know I've spoken to a lot of different guys, and their wrestling fandoms all come from a variety of different places. I mean, my wrestling fandom literally came from playing WCW and WWF video games on the PlayStation 1. So I'm curious to know,
Right.
how did your wrestling fandom start?
Well, I started watching as a kid growing up in the 90s. You had, my favorite was The Rock. Obviously, he was my favorite guy. I used to run around with DX and say "suck it" to the teachers, and in school and acting a fool, and it was just the 90s wrestling, more so from like 96 on is what I can remember wrestling, but more so 1997 Bad Blood, Undertaker and Shawn Michaels and Hell in a Cell. Kane comes out, makes his debut, rips the cage open. I was so invested in the match and the story that I got so mad when Kane interrupted. I turned the TV off, and my pops like smacked me in the back of the head, got mad at me, and ever since then I was hooked. And then around 2014, I was still in the Marine Corps at the time, and I went shopping at Target. My daughter was like 4 months old. I had her in the shopping cart. She knocked down some DVDs. We was in the DVD aisle, and one of the DVDs that fell was like The Rock's top 10 greatest matches. At the time, I didn't know about the WWE Network. I didn't know what independent wrestling was. All I knew was WWF, TNA, and WCW from back in the day. And so I buy The Rock's top 10. I go home. I sit down with my daughter, put her in a bopper, give her a bottle. I turn The Rock on. We start watching it, me and her. My daughter's mom comes into the room. She says she's never really watched wrestling. I'm like, really? I haven't watched it in years, but I grew up watching it. How have you never seen this? This is The Rock. She knows him as Dwayne Johnson from the movies, and so I look online and see when WWE was coming to the area. I thought it'd be a cool date night, and they were coming the next week. And so I bought tickets. We went to the Valley View Casino in San Diego. We watched it. I think the main event was like Rollins and Reigns versus somebody from the Authority in a tables match. It was like a tag team table match, one of the live shows or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it was dope. It was fun watching. It kind of like got me, excited about wrestling. And this guy that I knew from the military, Joe Gamble, he came up to me. He saw me. I was a sergeant in the military at the time. He was a corporal, so he gave me like the respect for the rank. And then he said that he didn't know I was a wrestling fan, that he's trained to be a pro wrestler. And I laughed because I thought it was funny. Like, how do you train to be a pro wrestler? I'd always thought it was like one of those, like, you got to get scouted and like, like I didn't know how. And he explained to me what it was. I show up to the school to start training, and 1 month into training, I make my debut, or a month and a half into training, I make my debut in a Royal Rumble type match. And then 2 months after that, I make my debut in a singles match in the main event of a show, Wrestling for a Championship. I didn't win. And then I just started rolling from there, and I think me and that company split ways about 9 months in. We had ended on bad terms. They told me I'll never wrestle ever again. And I got a call from David Marquez from Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. And he brought me to Hollywood. I was like not even a year in wrestling in the business yet. And I'm making my debut on TV. And that's why I thank Mr. Marquez for everything, because if it wasn't for him pulling me in, I would not be wrestling right now. And after I started wrestling from Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, that's when all my other bookings started coming in. That's when I had great matches in San Diego. That's when Conan saw me and brought me to Mexico to wrestle for The Crash in front of 5,000 people in the Fausto Gutierrez Auditorium in Tijuana, and I started wrestling for The Crash on a consistent basis. And I'm wrestling in LA and San Diego. I'm driving to Vegas now. I'm driving to Arizona. And now I'm starting to get more and more buzz, and I'm wrestling for Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, and things are going great, and then, the rest is pretty much history from there.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal story. And I love that you'd never gave up, especially after you were mentioned that company that kind of ended on bad terms. And I'm glad that you stuck around for wrestling, because I think you've been doing pretty well, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, I think so too. I will never talk bad about the company publicly. I will never say things, and I don't talk shit, but I will say that my success speaks for itself, right. And when they doubted me and they thought it wasn't going to happen, I just like to prove people wrong. And I think that I proved a lot of people wrong. And I just want to keep grinding and working, because I got a little girl that's watching me, and that's what's most important.
So obviously, besides the wrestling stuff, you've been involved in the movie industry. You've been you were talking previously that you've had a movie project sort of coming out. I wanted to get your thoughts on it, sort of talk about it a little bit. Well,
there's a few projects coming out, but I want to take a second to shout out John Hennigan, or John Morrison, as everybody knows him from SmackDown. His movie, The Speed of Time, directed by William Strobling, is now entering film festivals this weekend.
Oh, wow.
And I was very fortunate, to train with John Morrison in the ring, to up my skill levels and work with him on the parkour stuff and the stunt stuff. and incorporating that into the wrestling world. And he was getting ready to shoot his movie Speed of Time, and he needed a stunt man to go over the pre-visual fight scenes for the choreography for the film. So I said I'll help him because he was helping me train. I showed up, we went over the fights for the film, and then he got me booked in the movie. And I did almost all the stunts for that movie. As the bad guys, I did all of them. Almost, I would say I did about 80% of the stunts in that film.
Wow.
And I'm super grateful to him. And I hope that Speed of Time does so well at these film festivals, and we bring home some awards, some trophies. You know, John is a great guy, a great friend of mine, and he deserves nothing but the good things. So that's coming out soon, The Speed of Time. And then I have done a few little short projects, but my main one that I'm really excited for is called Joe Riv. And it's a film that basically shows the world what I can do as an actor and a stuntman and a writer and a producer. I do all my own stunts in this film. I act, I wrote it, you know, I produced it, and I'm just grateful that I had some very, very cool, amazing stunt people come on board for this, and actors and actresses, as well as my friend Miko Sad, who directed it. And it's about, you know, well, quick background. My birthday is September 2nd, 1991, right? September 2nd is the same birthday as Keanu Reeves. He's one of my favorite actors besides Denzel Washington. I loved The Matrix growing up, and more so now John Wick. So this film, Joe Riv, is kind of like the same theme as John Wick. It's an action movie about a badass dude. But, you know, in my story, I'm an ex-soldier, ex-special forces. I don't want to say soldier, ex-special forces that has to go missing, has to die because of a top secret mission. So everybody thinks he's been dead for 3 years. His sister goes to a club one night. Some things happen. She gets killed. So basically the film takes place right after that. And Joe Riv comes back home, a ghost per se, to avenge his sister's death. It's a lot of action, a lot of fun. It's a short film. It's in the post-production right now. We're editing it, making sure that it's coming out the way we want so that the fans and audiences that watch it can love it. And then after we're done with the editing of it and it's all ready to go, we're going to submit it to some film festivals, hopefully get some things going on the action side of the film festivals. And then when it's ready, we're going to plan to release it to Amazon for about $3 per view.
I'm definitely excited for it, and you already sold me on the premise of the film alone, so I'm definitely going to check it out once it comes out. And I wish you the best of luck when it comes to submitting the film to festivals. I hope it gets picked up. So obviously, one thing that I absolutely love, and I remember watching a previous interview that you did, and I remember you talking about your love for Marvel, which I'm excited, which I'm happy because I'm a huge comic books fan, especially Marvel. And I'm love to sort of know what like your history with Marvel and gets comic books in general, because I believe you also you've mentioned that you also tried out for to do stunt work for Marvel.
My first audition ever was for Marvel. I don't know how it happened. It was very weird. At the time, I was doing the Year of the Spider gimmick, where all my wrestling gear was a different spider suit from one of my favorite Spider-Man comics. You know, I did the Spider-Man 2099. I did the red and blue. I did the symbiote. I did the Iron Spider. I did the Far From Home with the Endgame suit Spider-Man. I did Future Foundation. I did Captain Spider. I did all these different things, you know. I got an email about Marvel Live at the stunt show, auditioning. They wanted me to come out. I came out and I auditioned, and that's where I got the bug for stunts and acting. Was from my Marvel audition. It was my favorite. You know, and growing up as a kid, I was a huge comic book fan. My dad would come home with comic books all the time for me to watch. For me to read. You know, my favorite cartoon to watch on Saturday mornings was the Amazing Spider-Man, you know, the animated series on Channel 5, the X-Men series on Channel 5, Fantastic Four cartoons, the Iron Man cartoons. That's what I watched. That was my life. I would get all these little action figures, you know, and to this day, you know, my parents were awesome enough to like get me action figures, and they would get like doubles. And so all the ones that I opened up back in the day are all lost and broken or whatever, but I still had the second copies still sealed in the packages. From all the 1995 to 1997 action figures from Marvel, from the Iron Man series to the X-Men series, the Uncanny X-Men series, the Spider-Man series, all of these dope action figures still in the box. And I have a huge Funko Pop collection of all Marvel action heroes and villains that I've gotten from like Hot Topic and Target and even the SDC exclusives, because I used to go to San Diego Comic-Con every year as well. I cosplay as Spider-Man. I go to children's hospitals as Spider-Man. I go to birthday parties as Spider-Man. I go to conventions as Spider-Man. I go to schools as Spider-Man. Got several different custom studio-made suits. My love for Marvel just runs deep. The movies have always been a part of my life. I got to meet Stan Lee before he passed away. That was like one of the best moments of my life, was meeting the man that created my childhood and even my adulthood now with the movies and stuff like that. And I just been very blessed to have a hero to look up to, and I'm thankful for my father to introducing me into that world.
Now you mentioned the Spider-Man cartoon. Was that the 90s one that aired on Fox?
Yes.
Oh man,
It's the best one. The best
thank
one.
you. I literally, you're the first person that agrees with me in saying that that particular series is the best one, because
Anybody who says otherwise, I don't know what's wrong with them. You had everything that you needed. You had the romance of Mary Jane, the romance of Felicia Hardy, the romance of Black Cat. You had the Gwen Stacy. You had all the villains. You had the Sinister Six stories. You had the Mutant Spider stories. You had the Secret War story in there. You had literally everything that you would want.
Everything
was in that series, you know, and I loved it. And it's on Disney Plus, but I think they only have 1 season or 2 seasons on Disney Plus.
It sucks that I don't have the full thing. I remember I used to have a VHS of I think it was 4 specific episodes. It was the little mini arc with the Spot that included Hobgoblin and Green Goblin. Yep. Yeah, the one with the black hole.
Jane.
Yeah. Yep, I used to have that VHS of those episodes, and I would just rewind and watch it like all the time when I was a little kid. It was really the best series.
It was the best series, and even the X-Men show was amazing as well.
Yeah,
for sure. I got to meet the entire cast and crew actually from the X-Men that voiced the X-Men characters in the 90s. I got a picture with them and everything. They all signed it. Awesome memories.
Now, were you much of a gamer when you grew up, particularly when it came to wrestling? Because I know you watched a lot of WWF and WCW growing up. Were you much of a gamer with the wrestling games?
I like to play the SmackDown versus Raw, the Here Comes the Pain, the Just Bring It. You know, even the No Mercy for Nintendo 64. I only played wrestling games. I did play like Crash Bandicoot. And I played the Warriors on PlayStation 2. But what I would do with like the SmackDown versus Raw games, me and my father, you know, we would create our own characters and make our own stories for our characters, and we'll like do our own draft, and we'll draft our own people that we wanted, and we would use them to face each other and stuff like that. So my dad did like a whole little paperwork where he would write like who had the most wins and who's up for a title shot, and we'd make stories and stuff. And I think that kind of got my like brain juices flowing on creativity as well. You know, and I think that from reading comic books to the stuff that I would do with my pops, you know, the parkour on the streets, the tags, the chases, the sitting behind a keyboard because my mom wanted me to learn how to type at a young age. I think all that just created my crazy imagination, my creative juices and stuff like that. And I apply it today when I'm writing stories to shoot and to film, when I'm teaching my daughter, when I'm thinking of things to elevate my characters. It all comes from my childhood and my imagination and how crazy it is.
So before I let you go, I have asked around social media if any fans of yours had any questions, and I do have a couple.
Okay.
You know, I had someone ask, you know, how does, you know, wrestling from the indies to New Japan, how is that transition been? And even though it's been without fans, does it feel like it's a bigger stage for you on New Japan?
It 100% feels like a bigger stage. The no fans, it wasn't that hard of an adjustment to make. I kind of just tuned in, locked in, because this was definitely not a place where I wanted to be distracted or make an excuse for performance. It definitely came in there game ready. So I did not want to let the fact that there was no fans have a factor. I missed the indies. You know, I missed the fans, the cheering, the booing, the chants, you know, at the intermission, selling merchandise and just taking pictures with the fans and having a good time with them and just seeing their expressions, their reactions to, you know, the match and the outcome and things like that, the investment, because the independent fans, they're such diehard fans, you know, without them, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And then with New Japan and Championship Wrestling Hollywood, it's all about the cameras, you know, telling a good story. I definitely feel like I wrestle a lot there. I know for a fact I wrestle a lot differently on TV than I wrestle on the independent scene. It's just a matter of making sure that what I'm doing tells the picture for everyone watching at home. You know, the cameras, the facial expressions, there's a lot more that goes into it that you know, just I had to learn. And I think Championship Wrestling from Hollywood took me from such a young age. And I don't want to say such a young age, such a young part in my career. And I think that prepared me, because I was only wrestling on the indies, like I said, just under a year before I got to TV. So I learned TV, started learning TV pretty fast. And so even on the independents now, when I was wrestling, I find myself looking for the cameras, from the roaming cameras, just for those facial expressions, you know. And then if there's no cameras roaming because of the budget wise of that independent company, then I'm looking for fans' faces to react and interact with them. So it's a very big difference, but at the same time, it's still maintaining that professional outlook and just carrying yourself a certain way. And you know, it's been a huge blessing wrestling for New Japan, and I'm thankful for that. And I just can't wait to see what comes next.
Got another question here, and it's obviously, you know, you mentioned, you've spoken at length already about your history watching wrestling, but your career has sort of been on the fast track from the indies to television and now New Japan. And so I had someone ask, you know, what wrestlers or promotions you sort of like to watch just to learn from, or even just to sort of kick back and relax, just because the product is that good?
Me, well, I love watching. When I first started wrestling, I told you that the first match I had seen back was the tables match with Rollins, Reigns, and Authority. Mm-hmm. And when I first tuned back into Monday Night Raw, was right after the Shield pay-per-view, the Survivor Series match with Authority, or something like that, or not the Survivor Series, it was Payback. And then the next night it was like Raw, and Rollins turns on the Shield.
Yeah.
So the first time watching Raw, I see Rollins turn on the Shield, and I immediately became a Seth Rollins fan. So I started looking at all the Seth Rollins stuff. I started watching all his matches. Then I started finding out about Ring of Honor and Tyler Black and the things he used to do there. So I watched Rollins a lot early in my career. And then I went back. I started watching a lot of Rey Mysterio, a lot of Eddie Guerrero, you know, those small WCW cruiserweight guys back in the day. And then now, like, I like watching guys like Johnny Gargano, Adam Cole, even you know, Finn Balor. I like watching those kind of guys to see what they're doing, how they put a story together, how they put things in the matches, why they put them there and where they put them at, and it's just constantly studying. I also like to watch Randy Orton because I feel like everything he does is meaningful. He doesn't have any wasted movement, and I think he's one of the best wrestlers ever.
Yeah, I mean, especially look at what he's been doing for the last, especially for this entire year. It's been, if not, you can argue 2020 may have been maybe Randy Orton's best year, which is amazing to say him over in his 40s.
Years later. Yep. 17, 18 years later, this has probably been his best year for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Lastly, and this is my own personal question because look, you're Puerto Rican, I'm Puerto Rican, and and there's been a couple of Puerto Rican guys in wrestling. I mean, Santana and Ortiz. We have the Colones.
Kind of powerful, you know, the
Colones and everything. I mean, obviously, what the sort of kind of just carrying the flag of Puerto Rico, which has a phenomenal wrestling history dating back decades and decades, not just from the wrestling promotions in there, but also the influence it's had in the United States and all over the world. So what kind of wrestling as a Puerto Rican kind of mean to you every time you sort of step into the ring?
I think it means everything. You know, you just named off the top of your head, you really only named 4 people.
Yeah.
And then you had to say the lineages and the generation to generation, but the only 4 people really came to your head: Santana, Ortiz, and then the Colones.
Yeah, and Lince Dorado.
And Lince Dorado, that's my boy Lince. But that's really it. Mm-hmm. You can't really think of any other real Puerto Rican face on TV. That's, you know, and Santana, Ortiz, they're in a tag team. Colones were a tag team. Lince Dorado, he's in a team with the Lucha House Party.
Yeah, I think Tasha Steele's I think she's Puerto Rican as well, and she's on Impact.
I did not know that. So I just learned something else. But even still, 5, 6 people. To me, it's amazing being able to be one of the Puerto Rican faces, slowly trying to make myself a household name, just like those guys, trying to become, you know, everyone's next favorite wrestler. Representing for New York, Brooklyn, more importantly, New York Rican. So I'm not, you know, Puerto Ricans like to make fun of New York Ricans, but I'm definitely trying to carry my city, definitely trying to carry my flag, and just be proud of where I came from, be proud of who I am, and not forget. And, you know, when I first started wrestling, I didn't have that mentality. And when Marquez pulled me to Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, I was Los Primos Rivera. You could go back and watch, and I came out with a big Puerto Rican flag. And now I'm just going back to those roots, but more professionally tacked. That's not even the word. More experienced than I was 5 years ago, for sure. You know, and I'm bringing it louder. I'm bringing it stronger. And you know, I think that I'm one of the top unsigned Puerto Rican stars on the independent scene right now. You know, if I think of other Puerto Ricans, I think of Papo Esco, I think of Gino Rivera, and I think of Slice Boogie, and that's only because they're on the West Coast. I can't really think of anybody else if anybody knows anything, please let me know. I would love to connect with them, collaborate or something. But I think it would be tight to see like a Puerto Rican faction, not sign anywhere, just like some Puerto Rican young bloods that are hungry, that want to make a name for themselves, do some things. I think that'll be cool. And I'm just happy to just carry my flag. Now I wear around my face as a bandana, you know, and I come out with the Statue of Liberty on my knee pads, on my trunks, and she's wearing a Puerto Rican bandana. And I just, you know, it's no disrespect to the Statue of Liberty, but I'm just proud. I'm just proud to be Puerto Rican. I'm proud to be, you know, a New Yorker, and I'm proud to be wrestling and doing what I love to do and being able to represent for my people, for mi gente.
Yeah. Yo soy boricua, para que tú lo sepas.
Para que lo sepa, oíste.
Danny, thanks so much for taking time to talk to me. I love this interview. You can check out Danny Limelight versus Rocky Romero September 11, New Japan Strong at New Japan World at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. And you can also check him out at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. I believe your next match is on Saturday, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, sir. Saturday versus Slice Boogie. He's from Puerto Rican, from Queens right there. There you go. We have a little Subway series going. This weekend, a big weekend for Danny Limelight. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to be part of this show. Thank you for having me. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Danny Limelight. You can even catch me on TikTok at Danny Limelight and ProWrestlingTees.com/Danny Limelight. Hit me up. I'm not hard to reach. I'm not hard to talk to. Much love to everybody. Carlos, thank you so much, Papa. Let's do this again soon.
Absolutely, man. Thanks so much. And wish you the best of luck in your career.
Thank you so much, Carlos.